Texas and Oklahoma have been forced out of the Big 12 early. It doesn't get better than that. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Drake Toll from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. Thanks for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. And today's show is all about two teams that aren't named Baylor, Texas and Oklahoma, but a little bit of how this affects your Baylor Bears as they are officially leaving the Big 12 a year early. This is not, look, let's be very clear here. This is not Texas and OU saying like, oh yeah, we're chill paying $100 million to leave the Big 12. This is Texas and OU being so uncomfortable that they have been forced out of the league. Don't think, oh no, we lost these two teams, like, oh, they really wanted to get out of here and pay all that money and well, see ya. No, it's not that simple. This is BYU, Cincinnati, Houston, and UCF come to the Big 12. Texas and OU leave in the dark of the night. And remember when like the Oklahoma legislature, all Oklahoma State's like, oh, we're going to go to the law and make sure this can't happen. And there are teams in Texas and Governor Abbott and all these people are like, oh, if Texas leaves, it's going to kill the Big 12. And Bob Bowlesby, Brett Yormark, the leadership of the Big 12, they immediately go straight to four major brands in college athletics and say, hey, we're losing Texas and Oklahoma. People are saying we're going to implode and this is all going to go down the drain and the Big 12 is going to die and our team's going to the Pac-12. Remember the episode about Baylor going to the SEC or Baylor going to the Pac-12? That was the big conversation, is who's next to the Pac-12. Well, instead now, the Pac-12 is on the brink of death. The Big 12 signs UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston. And Texas and Oklahoma decide, that's our curtain call. See you later. They couldn't, I don't think they could have gotten out fast enough. Because they originally came out, remember they said, like, oh, that's way too much money. We're not going to pay that. That's way too much. Like the headache and the TV deal, and we're going to stick around. And then four new teams were added, and the tune changed a little bit. The conversations the last couple of weeks picked up into, okay, how can Texas and Oklahoma get out? And then finally they decided, all right, we're not going to pay. We're not going to get out early. We're going to stick around. And then it's like Texas really sat and thought about it. Chris Del Conte really sat and thought about it and thought, oh, we have to play Houston on the road. We have to play Houston on the road. We have to demean ourselves by driving down to Space City and playing a football game in the Cougar Stadium. And then Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma sat down and thought, oh, the Big 12 gave us 6 terrible home games. Made us play a ton of games on the road, and none of our home games are marquee except for the very final one against TCU when nothing matters anymore. We got boned. Well, of course. Why wouldn't the Big 12 do that? This is Brett Yormark, the scheduling of the Big 12, laughing at Texas, laughing at Oklahoma, and saying, we beg you, we plead, give us $100 million. If you want to leave, if you're uncomfortable, if you don't like this, if you don't like the hand you're dealt in the league that you left, then pay us $100 million. And what did Texas and Oklahoma do? They paid $100 million. The Big 12 is so strong that it made these two programs so uncomfortable that not only will this league succeed by having these two teams exit a lot sooner, a year sooner, they also get $100 million out of this deal. Like the 12 teams that are left here, your league's $100 million richer, and those two teams, see you later. I'm ready. Like the second that Oklahoma and Texas said we're leaving, like, all right, great, get out. Like I don't want you here anymore. I can't imagine the Big 12 teams and the Big 12 leadership was like, oh yeah, let's hang on to them for a while. We need to keep those guys. The rhetoric was not immediately, okay, losing Texas and Oklahoma, like we need to do everything we can to keep them because if they're gone, we're going to die. No, inside the Big 12 offices, this was, if Texas and Oklahoma leave, okay, who's next? That's what it was from the beginning. Brett Yormark, Bob Bowlesby, too, who I give a lot of credit to, they didn't freak out from the beginning. They just said, all right, great. See ya. The sooner you want to leave, the better. We'll let you exit. 2025, all right, great. TV deal's great. You can pay us right now. You can go. We'd love for you to go, actually. You give us some money, we'll break your we'll take the contract out, and you can head on down the road. That's exactly what they're doing now. I love it. I love it. It's like if you're a Texas and OU fan, you get to go to the SEC a year earlier. You get to go lose more games a year earlier. Baylor, and we'll get into this more, will never play OU again in football unless it's a bowl game or something weird or different. Baylor and Oklahoma will not face each other on the gridiron again. Baylor, we'll look up 15 years from now and say Baylor has not lost in the last 15 years to Oklahoma. They're going to end this with a win. Baylor gets Texas at home next year. They have the opportunity to do the very same thing with Longhorns. Longhorns are not going to schedule the Bears in non-conference. That's not going to happen. So you're staring down the barrel of Baylor can beat Texas, beat Oklahoma in their last games, playing them for years and years down the road and hang that over their heads. And you say, hey, Oklahoma, in your last 3 seasons you played in our league, you didn't win the league. In your last 3 seasons, because they haven't done it the last 2 years, they're not going to do it next year. In your last 3 seasons in our league, you didn't even play for a conference championship. Hey, Texas, when's the last time you won a Big 12 championship? Your last decade in our league, you didn't win a league title. So great. You both took your big brands to the SEC. But what did you do in the Big 12? Legitimately, in the sport that brings the most revenue far and away, that matters the most far and away for any metric, what did you two do? What did Texas do in the NCAA tournament in basketball? What did Oklahoma do in the NCAA tournament in basketball? What did these are the 2 major programs, men's basketball and college football? And what have these 2 what have you done for me lately? Okay. Take your brand to the SEC. If you think it's going to be easier in the SEC, maybe it is in basketball. Maybe you win a few more games in basketball. You're going to get crushed in football. The transition's not going to be smooth. Oklahoma's not an SEC school. Texas, you're an SEC school. Sure, you're going to get beat. You're going to get beat. You haven't been beating SEC teams. You're not going to beat SEC teams. I am glad. Like, I'm telling you, they know this. All right? Texas and Oklahoma know that when they go to the SEC, the competition gets so much better. They're going to start losing some games. It's going to be a tough transition moving forward for these 2 teams. They know that. So they were delaying it. They didn't want to pay the money. Let's stay in the Big 12. Let's try to get a little bit stronger before we make this transition. And now you're gone. And on your way out the door, we'll take $100 million of your dollars. You have to go step into the big-time competition next. You're going to lose the league, having known that Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, these teams are building better programs and on a better trajectory than you were. You're going to leave the league knowing that. The Big 12 is, I don't want to say stronger financially without you, but the atmosphere, the aura around the Big 12 is stronger without Texas and Oklahoma. Now, there are not 2 teams that want to leave this league. That doesn't bode well for Texas and OU. You're leaving, and the league that you think needs you to survive is saying goodbye and taking $100 million from you. Thank you. This is great. This is great. I love it. I saw the news and I laughed. I mean, you laugh. It's funny. It's funny that Texas and OU thought, we're the big dogs. See you later. We're going to leave. You guys are going to disband. Some of you going to the Pac-12. Maybe one of you can be lucky enough to go with us to the big SEC. A couple of you going to the ACC. Yeah, sure. The Big 12's not staying alive. We are that conference. It's us. We bring the money in. Bob Bowlesby, who many of you, the listeners, probably thought was incompetent, says, all right, well, that's 4 more teams. Now what? We added 4 more teams to get out. If you want to go, leave. Texas and OU said, no. We don't want to leave yet. We want to stay. We want to stay for a little bit. Do a little goodbye parade. What was Texas's goodbye parade last season? Alamo Bowl where they lost? What was Oklahoma's? 6-7, I think? 6-7? Yeah. All right. I mean, they're delaying the inevitable. Delaying the going to the SEC and losing. Okay. Yeah. Do that in this league. Lose next year. Give a couple wins to the new guys, too. Texas has to go play at Houston. It's unbelievable. It's great. They are so down bad that they have to play at Houston that they're leaving. See you later. You know who I won't see later? I will see later. I will see them later. It's FanDuel. It's it. I mean, guys, it's number 1. It's the number 1 fan sports app, wagering app that there is in America. Number 1. It's like this podcast. This is the number 1 daily Baylor program. It's the only one, so it's number 1, but it is. FanDuel's number 1 sports book. It's where I go to see all my lines, everything. Super Bowl's coming up. No sweat, first bet. Put $3,000 in the Super Bowl. Do it. I dare you at FanDuel.com. If your bet doesn't hit, you get $3,000 in free play. It's a free play. It's a no sweat first bet. Your first bet, no sweat. Don't sweat it. Play didn't hit. You're good. We're good. You're fine. $3,000 in and free play. It is FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel.com/lockedon to get that deal. Don't miss it. I'm giving it to you right now for special. It's for special for you, Super Bowl 57. Right now, FanDuel.com/lockedon. No sweat first bet. FanDuel. Make every moment with FanDuel, official sports partner of the NFL. So what does this do for Baylor? Well, I tell you what, it makes me happy. I don't know if you can tell that. It makes me happy. If you're a Baylor fan, you don't have to worry about Texas anymore. You don't have to worry about Oklahoma anymore. You don't have to make those trips, these quasi-rivalries. You did fine against Texas, fine enough in the last 12 years, 15 years. You did fine enough against Oklahoma in the last 10 years. Great. See ya. Bye. Okay. I mean, look, you won't play them again. You won't see Texas in this rivalry again. You won't pack out McLean Stadium for the big game against Texas. Sure. You won't pack out the big game against Oklahoma. Yeah. Let's be real here. There are games, basketball, Texas men's basketball, Texas and OU both in football, where the fans that show up at McLean Stadium are not necessarily showing up to see Baylor play. They're showing up to see Baylor play Oklahoma. They're showing up to see Baylor play Texas. Here's what I mean by that. The Baylor crowd is not as big for a game against Kansas as it is, even homecoming, as it is for Texas or OU. It's because Baylor fans want to see Baylor playing a big team. They're not going out of their way to support Baylor. This is not all. This is it's a minority, I should say, that are just going to the big games. But you do lose that. You lose that luster. All right, sure. There was some fan draw when Texas came to town. There's some fan draw when Oklahoma came to town. That's objective. Those are the games they pack out and at $1 gajillion tickets. Sure. But who needs them? Huh? BYU's hanging around. That's a fun rivalry. Let's make that a rivalry. Cincinnati can be a new fun rivalry. You go to UCF next season. You're not going to see you taking Texas to Oklahoma off the schedule. For the last couple of years, those have been wins. Like since I got to college, Baylor's done a decent job of beating Texas, decent job of beating Oklahoma in football. Since I got to college, Baylor's done a pretty darn good job of beating Texas and Oklahoma, an insanely good job of beating Texas and Oklahoma in men's basketball. Women's basketball, I mean, come on, man. Volleyball enough. Like OU's not really great at a lot of sports. Softball, good. What else? That matters. What else? Texas has got those. Texas has got swimming, yes. Football wasn't good last year. You beat Baylor. They weren't good last year. Men's basketball, yeah, you're top 10. You're top 10 for sure. It hasn't been sustainable in the past, guys. Women's basketball, you're getting better. They're doing all right. Softball's good. Baseball's good. Sure. Where are you making your bed? If you're Texas, like when you go to the SEC, what does the SEC look at and say, like, shoot, Texas is going to beat us. Swimming, track and field. And from a Baylor standpoint, what are you losing? And in those good sports, Texas is good at baseball and softball. Now you get Cincinnati and UCF and BYU and Houston. So now you're just winning more games in baseball. You're winning more games in softball. Cha-ching. See you later. Bye. So in those sports, you're winning more games. There are sports where you're taking wins away, men's basketball namely, but you're still going to win more games because the teams you're bringing in athletically in men's basketball, look, Baylor can still beat those at a pretty high rate. Like that, I just don't. Where does Baylor lose? Where is this not good? Texas and Oklahoma leaving for the Bears. I don't see a place. I love it. Goodbye. And goodbye early for $100 million. You know, I won't see a dime. If you take it, there's 12 teams left. There's the Hateful Eight and the 4 new guys. You take that $100 million, you divide it 12 ways. You're looking at giving everybody what? $8-ish million. Great. I won't see a dime from that $8 million. I won't. Not a penny. It won't affect me, period, but I love it. I love it. And it probably won't be divvied out that way, sure. But I still love it, man. That's Texas and OU money. That's the big money. They couldn't afford it. They couldn't afford to leave. But they were so ticked off. They got the shaft so much so. The big, mighty Big 12 gets the last laugh that Texas and OU had to hit the door. So what do you want? Well, you're Baylor. You are, like, for me, a Baylor person, your Baylor takeaway. How should Baylor fans feel? It's glorious. Pop up in a cold one. Dr. Pepper, non-alcoholic. Because it doesn't get better. If you told me best case scenario, Texas and Oklahoma leave, what's the best case scenario as they exit the door? This. Oklahoma sucks at football. Texas still sucks at football. They're not back. The rest of their sports, sure, good, fine, whatever. But they felt so either threatened or uncomfortable. They were willing to pay $100 million to go. That's the last laugh. That's the best case scenario with those two teams leaving. See ya. Bye. This has been Locked On Baylor. Short episode today. It's Thursday when I'm recording, late on a Thursday. I'm just tired, guys. It was a long week. Come back Monday, though. We'll recap Baylor. Robbie Triano was supposed to join today. We had to move some stuff around with all this breaking news. Come back on Monday. We'll recap the Baylor game against TCU this weekend. They'll win. Yeah. At TCU. Yeah. Give me the Bears. This has been, and always will be, Locked On. Thank you. Making your first listen every single day. Baylor.